What's going on? I'm recording this about a week or two after Art Basel, which was insane. I think Art Basel alone deserves its own video slash episode, probably going to be a podcast episode, just recapping how things happened. But in this video, you're going to be watching my first mural in Miami that went down during Art Basel, thanks to some of the great artists that I met here in Miami. Yeah, without further ado, let's get into it.
Alright, so the long story behind Art Basel and how everything came together will be broken down thoroughly in my next podcast episode, but for now, the short story is I moved to Miami, which y'all know by now. I connected with a Miami artist at Lord Byron Artwork. You should go check him out. Excuse me. We had been following each other since I was in Chicago, and when I moved here, I hit him up. He was painting a mural. He introduced me to his friend Alvin Surreal, and Alvin took me to a venue called The Spot, Wynwood, where him and his boy Zoe were painting murals. Alvin introduced me to the owner of The Spot, and the rest was history. Now, that's the short version of the story, but again, I'll be covering the details in another video, trust me. So for now, let's just get into the mural. So as you've seen by now, I started with this doodle grid that I had been seeing a bunch of artists applying. I even saw a bunch of artists using the doodle grid at Art Basel, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to do this because I'm basically taking a sketch from my sketchbook that I colored, and I need to enlarge it in the best, most accurate way. So the doodle grid came in handy, and at the end, it really worked out well for me. Big fan of the doodle grid now. And yeah, the vision for this piece, I guess, was I thought what better to get my name out there in Miami than to start with like my infamous Night Demon characters just taking over the wall with my, inner child character struggling in the middle. And I sketched this and colored it the night/morning before. Showed up to the wall and just got going. Really had to take the spray paint, training wheels off for Art Basel because you need to like get your walls done within a day or two. And yeah, it was just like, all right, time to figure it out. I hadn't really messed with spray paint that prominently since like my graffiti days, so that was a bit of a challenge, but after a couple days you kind of get the hang of things, and there's still a lot, to learn and apply to future walls and pieces and that kind of thing. say the most challenging part of this first mural had to be the lighting, and I apologize for how bad the lighting got in this video. At some point, they were actually hosting a group art show and like creative event that night, where they had different, you know, booths and vendors and a DJ, and it was pretty poppin' night. But it wasn't until like late into the event that one of the other people, that one of the vendors or artists was like, "Hey, you need a light?" And they let me borrow their light, and the lighting gets better, I promise. But it was a crazy experience, because it went from being, you know, me painting a mural at this spot to me doing a live painting and having people interact with me as I was like working on touch-ups and that kind of thing. So that was a lot of fun, and I got to meet a lot of cool people, cool creatives in the process. This piece was like my first, you know, large scale piece that was probably 80 to 90%, no, it was like 90% spray paint and maybe 10%, 10 to 15, 20% of like acrylic touch-ups. And I must say I was pretty proud of myself to, you know, do a majority spray paint piece on a wall. The next mural, I really took the spray paint training wheels off. That one, I was like figuring out how to shade, figuring out how to just like draw with a spray can. But you'll have to stay tuned for that next one. But yeah, this was basically where we left off with the mural the night that I had been painting it. But then I came back the next day and I did a ton of touch-ups. I made the nose a little smaller, I touched up the lips, and just like, you know, touched up any line work that I wanted to, you know, wanted it to look a little cleaner. So yeah, didn't film that part, but you could see it in these photos. There you have it, my first mural in Miami and during Art Basel. It was an 8 by 10 foot wall. Incredible time working on it and meeting all these, you know, great artists down here. Big shout out to Alvin Surreal for making the connection. And shout out to The Spot. If you're ever in Miami, you should check out The Spot. They might have a concert going on, they might have a show. Kind of reminded me of Reggie's back in Chicago, where I'm from. So definitely gave me a little bit of nostalgia for Reggie's. But yeah, I had a great time. A lot of shout outs coming up, so I'm gonna just list them in the credits. And stay tuned for the next one. And stay tuned for the special Miami Art Basel episode of the podcast coming up, where I break down how this all really happened and how crazy of a weekend I had. Yeah, thank you for tuning in. Until next time.